Ahoy, folks, and welcome back to Broadside Gaming with me, Zug. So, I've had a little respite as I've been unwell for the last few days, but I'm now back, and so are the guides. So, today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to take a look at some builds that are being touted as the be all and end all to do level 40 Havoc. And we're going to go through them and just have a look and see what they're doing and what I would do differently. As I will preface this in saying that as a player, you could be given the world's best build, but if you're not used to or at that level of playing with it, you're not going to get as much out of it as somebody who is, I don't know, like some of the top players, the esports kind of level of players, which I'm not, because, I'm too old to be an esports player. I've got, crickety wrists and things. But we can have a look at them and go through them. So, first of all, we're going to take a look at the weapon setup that they are suggesting. So, first off the bat, the dueling sword. They are actually suggesting the Mark IV. Now, I don't like the Mark IV, and I'll tell you why. It's very, very good at what it does, which is base jabs. But it is actually slower in the sweeps, which is why I go for the Mark II. But the Mark II is not as good as the face jabs, but it is slightly faster in the sweep. I'll just show you the difference. Now, as you can see, the second heavy attack is a slash, but the sweeps are faster. But this is suggesting the Mark IV, and again, I will quickly defend myself from people. It's a personal preference. I like the Mark II more, but the Mark IV is perfectly fine as well. So let's take a look at the modifiers. Damage, finesse, penetration, lol. Cleave damage, and mobility is the dump. They are suggesting damage to be the dump. I strongly disagree with this, and I'm not going to roll a weapon just to have damage. So we're sticking with mobility. If you want to follow this guide completely, damage is their dump, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to. Next up, we got the perks. They're going with flak and unyielding. You could switch out unyielding for carapace to make sure that those crushers go down. That is a good choice as well. I mean, it's a perfectly good choice of switching out unyielding for carapace. Blessings wise, exactly the same. Uncanny strikes and riposte. Uncanny strike, plus 24% rending on enemy weak spot hit for 3.5 seconds, stacking 5 times, and riposte, plus 20% critical chance for 6 seconds on successful dodge. Very, very, very good blessings. What I use on mine anyway. Overall, the dueling sword it is one, if not the top weapon for the Zealot at the moment. I just don't like it. I find the gameplay very boring. That again, personal preference. You may absolutely love the dueling sword, because it is ridiculously powerful. This thing can drag you through basically anything with a bit of practice. Next up, we've got the Spearhead Bolt Gun with damage, reload, collateral, and stability as our main modifiers, and our dump is mobility. Next up, we've got the perks and flak and unyielding. Flak is the most prevalent armor type in the game, and unyielding is for being able to mag dump into bosses. And for the blessings, you can either go for shattering impact to help with dealing with armor, or pinning fire, which gives you 5% strength for every enemy you stagger, stacking 5 times. Up to you. I prefer shattering impact. Pinning fire is also a good one, though they have nerfed pinning fire slightly as of Grim Protocol. And next up, we've got puncture. Ranged hits, add 4 stacks of bleed to an enemy. And this does include any blow through or punch through or penetration that a bullet does through enemies. So everything it hits has a bleed stack on it. Again, very, very good weapon. It's really good for if you get yourself in a corner or you're trying to gun down a corridor full of armor. So generally just try and aim for the weak spots and blow through. Usually you can also do it with bulwarks. 5 to 6 shots should open the shield. There you go. Yeah, 6 shots opens the shield. Obviously, Probably shouldn't waste your ammo in Havoc, because ammo is quite a finite resource in Havoc, so wouldn't suggest it. Outside of Havoc, in normal gameplay, Damnation, whatever, yeah, it's fine to do it. Havoc, wouldn't suggest it. Obviously, get round it and just stab it in the side of the head. Again, I love the bolt gun. Very good weapon. It's turned out to be one of my favourites on both the Veteran and on the Zealot. Next up, we have the Curios. Now, this one differs from me slightly. They are picking up a Stamina Curio, which I don't tend to use on the Zealot. But if it's your bag, then it's your bag. So, the Curios. One Toughness Curio with extra toughness, stamina regeneration, and damage resistance gunners. Another Curio with 17% toughness, corruption resistance, and damage resistance gunners. And lastly, a Stamina Curio with toughness, stamina regeneration, and damage resistance gunners. Now, let me quickly add in the fact that somebody's going to make this comment. I am fully aware, and in every one of my videos I always say, this isn't giving you 60% damage resistance to gunners. There is a diminishing return that works out to actually about 42%. Yeah? But as gunners are some of the most dangerous enemies in the game still, because they have been since pre-unlocked and loaded, in the sheer number that they spawn, the fact that they hit scan and they do ridiculous damage, having 3 damage resistance gunners on your Curios only giving you 42% damage resistance is still a hell of a lot more than not having it. So there you go. Stamina regeneration is always useful. A little bit of corruption resistance, but you can switch that out for more stamina if you want to. This is a very dancey, speedy build. Again, I don't usually go for stamina on the Zealot, but this build calls for it, so there you go. My suggestion would be, instead of this stamina, probably go for another toughness Curio. I don't even remember what one I was using, to be honest. Where is it? Ah, there we go. I would probably go all 3 toughness, or 2 toughness, 1 health. And again, stamina regeneration isn't about the speed at which stamina regenerates, it's about the speed at which it starts to regenerate. That is what we care about, not the actual speed. It's how long it takes to start regenerating, which is the important part. So you could go for stamina regeneration, all 3 of these, but a little bit of corruption resistance does help out. Now, let's take a look at the build. So we're going to start off here in the middle with Anointed in Blood, up to 25% ranged, base range damage, reduced the further you are from the target, so mag dumping close to things gives lots of damage. Next up, we've got Purge the Unclean, a very good talent, plus 20% increased damage against infested and unyielding enemies. It basically starts off like most of my Zealot builds. Backstabber, plus 20% damage on melee backstab hits. Into Scourge, melee critical hits apply bleed, causing damage over time. Bleeds don't actually suffer that much from damage resistance against enemies in this. So bleeds are actually quite powerful. I'm not entirely sure if the Psyker's Soulfire, or whatever the hell it's called, I can't remember the name offhand. I don't know if their ability like that doesn't suffer from the damage resistance, but I know bleed doesn't at the moment, which makes it quite powerful in Havoc. Melee hits on bleeding enemies grant 10% crit chance for 3 seconds, stacking 3 times. Also, partly why we're taking Puncture on the bolt gun. Next into Toughness Boost, and then into Second Wind, replenish 15% toughness on successful dodge. And then we're taking Enduring Faith, plus 50% toughness damage reduction on critical hit for 4 seconds. Then into Blades of Faith. Throw a consecrated knife to deal high damage to a single enemy, very effective against most enemies, less effective versus Carapace armor. Quick throw, killing elites and specials, enemies in melee replenish 1 knife, ammo boxes also replenish knives. And what this doesn't say as well, the Blades of Faith do actually inherit all of your crit. So every little bit of crit you have in your build or from your talents, Blades of Faith also inherits. Then into Toughness Damage Reduction, into Dance of Death, minus 75% spread and 50% recoil for 3 seconds on successful dodge, very good with the bolt gun. And then into Good Balance, successful dodge grants 25% damage reduction for 2.5 seconds. I am slightly wondering why they haven't taken Thy Wrath Be Swift. It's a very good talent and actually does do a lot more than it says it does, as you can't get knocked off of things like hacking machines and that sort of thing with this talent, but okay. I usually take it, they haven't. Into toughness boost, then picking up melee damage boost, and then picking up movement speed boost. And again, gone a slight route that I probably wouldn't have done, but Duelist plus 50% weak spot and critical hit damage for 3 seconds and successful dodge, always pick that. And then down into Desperation, plus 20% melee damage for 5 seconds when stamina is depleted. I get why they're taking this, is because it's an incredibly stamina intensive build. So you're running with this 20% damage boost basically all the time. But they are missing out Until Death and Holy Revenant, which are very good talents to take. But again, the guy who built this, or the gal who built this, may not need that somewhat of a crutch talent. This only kicks in if you mess up or get unlucky. So maybe that is why they're not taking it. Again, usually I would. As I said, I am not Captain Esports. I am old and gristly. Then into Benediction. Plus 15% toughness damage reduction for you and your allies' incoherency. Always good. Just a nice flat toughness damage reduction. Into a toughness boost. Then taking toughness damage reduction, and then into Chorus of Spiritual Fortitude, a wildly overpowered and amazing skill. Wield a holy relic that releases pulses of energy every 0.8 seconds, while channeling allies' incoherency have stun immunity and invulnerability. Each pulse replenishes 45% toughness to allies' incoherency. If the ally is at full toughness, they instead gain plus 20% max toughness up to a total of 100. Base cooldown is 60 seconds. And then into Banishing Light, each pulse from Chorus of Spiritual Fortitude also staggers and suppresses enemies. Range increases with every pulse. And then into Ecclesiarchal's Call, channeling 5 pulses grants 20% damage to you and your allies' incoherency, lasts 10 seconds. So this is just a wildly brilliant, not only defensive, but offensive, and it locks down the entire fight. So, especially with 2 Zealots in the same team running this over comms, using it, leapfrogging each other, it's a ridiculously good way to run it. Then into a toughness damage reduction, into Faithful Frenzy, which gives us plus 10% melee attack speed, into Suppression Boost, plus 25% suppression dealt. Nobody cares about this, but it does get into this tree. Punishment, melee attacks that hit at least 3 enemies grant 5% impact strength for 5 seconds, stacks 5 times, at a max stack, gain uninterruptible. Then into Movement Speed Boost, and then we're picking up Invocation of Death. Plus 200% ability cooldown regeneration for 4 seconds on melee critical hit. This is a very crit heavy build, so this is going to be proccing a lot, which means you can use Chorus of Spiritual Fortitude a lot. Then into Blazing Piety, 15% critical hit chance for 8 seconds when in Fury. Fury is triggered when 25 enemies have died within 25 meters. And last but not least, Fury Rising. Critical hits also count up towards triggering Fury. Again, crit heavy, this is going to help trigger that, which is then going to give you more damage, and also allow you to use Invocation of Death more, which is going to allow you to use Chorus of Spiritual Fortitude more. All in all, a very good build. Some choices I don't 100% agree with, for example, missing out Until Death and Holy Revenant. But, I mean, if you're at that level of play, you probably don't need it. And also, I do like to take Thy Wrath be Swift. It's not mandatory, but it is useful. Everything else, pretty damn standard. From here downwards, pretty standard crit build. And here, also, you're hitting all the high notes in what is good up here. It's just this little bit I don't 100% agree with, but it is a very good way to do it. Now, as I said, for the weapons, there is nothing wrong with this setup whatsoever. This is an incredibly powerful, if boring, way to play the Zealot. And when I say boring, I mean from my point of view, I don't like the dueling sword. It's very, very good. I just don't like the gameplay with it. So, take it as you will. Spearhead bolt gun, always a joy to play with. The Curio is pretty standard apart from the plus stamina one that they are using. I don't usually take plus stamina on anything but the Psyker, but it does work with this build. So there you have it. A very high ranking Zealot build.
Not my cup of tea, but hopefully it's yours. If it is, please do like, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. It really does help us out. And I shall see you all for the next one. So until then, take it easy, and I'll see you later.